Hey, what's up guys? So pretty much since I started doing Escape from Tarkov content, I've been getting new players coming into my Discord, my Twitch stream, or here on YouTube, asking me for advice for new players and how to get better at the game. Tarkov is a very difficult, unforgiving game with no real tutorial, and it can be daunting for new players coming in, so I totally get it. Unfortunately, there's no magic piece of advice I can give anyone that will automatically make them better at the game. There's a very high skill curve with game mechanics that have a lot of nuance, and honestly, the only real way to get better at the game is just to play it. That said, there are certain things you can do, especially if you're brand new, that I think will help you learn the game much faster, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, this video isn't going to be about game settings or gunplay or game mechanics. I have guides for all of that stuff in other videos already, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and check those other tutorials out if you're looking for advice on that stuff. We're just going to be focusing on a few things that I think all new players should do to learn the game better, and a few specific pieces of advice that might help you out a lot if you weren't already aware of them. So if this guide does help you out, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for people to team up with, join my Discord server where we have over 1,000 members, and you can pretty easily find new friends to play with. Finally, come follow me on Twitch where I stream multiple times a week and I'm happy to answer more specific questions you have there. All of my links are in the description below. Now, the number one piece of advice I can give you if you're a brand new player is to use offline mode to learn the maps. Turn SCAVS on, which will allow you to practice your gunplay against the AI and get familiar with the game mechanics. Look up a 2D version of the map you want to learn on Google and bring it up on a second monitor or your phone or whatever, and use that to figure out where the spawn points are, as well as the extracts and even some good loot spots, including like buried stashes and stuff, which are often great for finding loot. You shouldn't need to go into an offline raid more than a couple of times before you're ready to go into a real live raid. Just make sure you've identified where all the extract points are and have a basic idea of how to get across the map without getting lost so that you can actually survive in a raid. Knowing where the buried stashes are is a bonus, but not super necessary. I wouldn't go into a real raid until you can reliably take out the scavs though. If you can't win a fight against the most basic AI scav, you're really going to struggle against real players, not to mention raiders and scav bosses. So make sure you understand that and learn all that stuff before you go in. A lot of people ask me what the best map is to learn on when you're brand new. To me, it depends. I personally feel like Customs is probably the best first map to learn. It's not the absolute easiest to learn, but it's probably the most straightforward with just 2 or 3 lanes to run through with various bottlenecks along the way to drive the action. There's a lot of decent PvP on this map, but it's not too hard to avoid if you want to, as most people push dorms right away and then spread out to gas station a couple other places later. I recommend this map mostly because a lot of your early quests will be on this map, which means it'll be necessary to learn it sooner rather than later, so you might as well start with it. The absolute easiest map to learn is probably Woods though. Woods just doesn't have much going on with it. There's not a lot of good loot on it, and players love to come in here in large groups and just snipe people all day, so I don't really recommend that you learn it first, but it is the easiest to learn. Factory is the smallest map, but it is a bit of a labyrinth, and when you're new, it's easy to get turned around and think you're on the opposite end of the map from where you actually are. I recommend it mostly because it's the best map to get PvP experience on. Because it's so small, it's by far the most action-packed PvP map when players actually spawn in geared. Half the time, though, people spawn in with just pistols or hatchets, and you can clean up pretty easily, but it's not very good to learn PvP on. Other times, though, it's going to feel more like Call of Duty than Tarkov in here, and it's going to be full of adrenaline and high action. It doesn't really give you the normal Tarkov experience, but it is pretty cool. The rest of the maps tend to be better for loot, but are a bit harder to learn. Feel free to pick any map you want, but personally, I'd hold off on them until you learn those first 3. So that's how you learn your maps. What about leveling up? Well, the 2 best ways to level up is to do your quests and to murder just all of the people. I assume if you're brand new, your ability to massacre an entire server is somewhat in question, so I'd focus mostly on the quests if I were you. Make sure you've picked up your quests and do them as often as possible. Some quests require you to bring certain things to them. If they don't specifically say those items need to be found in raid, then your best bet is to just buy them off the flea market, which you'll get at level 10. You might spend more on purchasing the items than you'll make in quest rewards, but it usually pays to gain the XP as quickly as possible, so I would take the small financial hit and just get the quest done as quickly as you can. See, if you're brand new, there's a good chance you're not showing up on day 1 of the new wipe. So most likely everybody else already has access to and is utilizing some of the best gear in the game, and from levels 1 through 9 you're pretty much going to be forced to use what you've scavenged or can buy from level 1 traders, which generally isn't going to be that good. So you need to grind up to level 10 as fast as possible to get access to the flea market. Once you hit level 10, leveling almost doesn't even matter anymore, as the flea market gives you instant access to every item in the game. At best, leveling up your traders gives you access to some things at a modest discount, but really quite often you can find things on the flea market for cheaper if you're patient and work the flea market a little bit. So yeah, grind to level 10 as fast as possible. It shouldn't take you too long to get there, maybe 2 or 3 days at most, as you level up fairly quickly in the early levels, even if you don't survive your raids too often. So if you do survive, you gain bonus XP, so surviving should always be your goal. Save all your found and raid gear until you hit level 10, and then just sell everything you don't need. For me, I managed to go from about 4,000 rubles to about 2 million just by selling everything I'd accumulated up to level 10, and 2 million rubles can get you several sets of very decent gear, which will make you much more competitive for PvP. For the most part, I would avoid PvP until then, as most likely you're not going to have very good ammo, so you won't be able to penetrate your enemy's armor, and you won't have very good armor, so your enemies will be able to kill you very easily. On the ammo and armor front, go download No Food After Midnight's ammo chart, which I've linked below. What you may or may not know as a brand new player is that for the most part, your guns don't matter, at least not compared to what ammunition you choose to pack it with. You could build the most expensive, most meta gun in the game, but if you pack it with the wrong ammunition, you'll never penetrate the armor of even modestly geared players and will get yourself killed. I like No Food After Midnight's chart in particular because in addition to giving you straight numbers, it also gives you a handy visual aid to give you a rough idea of how well that ammunition will do against all 6 classes of armor. Now, this video isn't meant to be all about ammo, but in general it makes sense to aim for the head if it's exposed. Every gun and bullet in the game will one-shot the head unless it's armored. Most ammo will penetrate most helmets in 1 or 2 shots, so when in doubt, aim for the head. If they're wearing some kind of crazy medieval knight-looking helmet and you're wielding an automatic rifle with low penetration ammo, you might be best off to aim for their legs and spray them down until they're dead. It might not be intuitive, but there's no leg armor in the game right now, and most ammo, if it can't penetrate armor, it usually does high flesh damage, so if you're using an auto-fire gun, you can usually spray down their legs and kill them that way. If you don't know what you're doing though, I'd probably just run away and live to fight another day. See, that's one big thing about Tarkov, is you should never feel like you have to fight to the death just because the people are there. Survival is really the only goal in a game like this. I come from PUBG, so it was a big paradigm shift for me to get used to not just chasing gunshots every time I heard them, but playing this game much slower and treating your life like it's the most important thing to the game will actually really help you in your success rate. A few other things you should do. First, use the TARKOV.WIKI often. It's a great resource, especially for helping you figure out what to do with quests, as well as learning what items you should save for quests, trades, hideout upgrades, and what items are safe to sell on the flea market. I use this almost every time I play, even now. Another great resource is Battle Buddy, an app you can download on both iPhone and Android, made by Veritas, another content creator here on YouTube, and is very useful for showing how effective ammo is, both against armor and just, people. Next, if you're struggling to survive any of your raids, make sure you're going in on scav raids as often as you can. A lot of new players seem to neglect their scavs pretty often, but in my opinion, when you're brand new, it pays to use them as often as you can, as they give you free gear, usually have more numerous and easier to reach extracts, and other scavs won't attack you unless you attack them first. Also, you tend to load into raids halfway through them when a lot of players have already died, so you're much less likely to get into PvP. These are a great way to help you really learn the maps while still being online, so if you survive, you get free loot, and if you die, it's no loss because you didn't risk anything to begin with. Prior to hitting level 10, you should use whatever armor you can get your hands on, but I wouldn't worry about helmets. If you can easily afford an SSH-68 helmet, that can be worth it, but I wouldn't waste your money on anything else. As for vests, just about anything is worth it if you can afford it, but mostly to protect you against scavs who use pretty bad ammo. I wouldn't rely on it protecting you from other players who are likely using ammo that will shoot right through your armor like it's not even there. Once you hit level 10 and have access to the flea market, you should probably use the best armor you can afford and make sure it's in the best possible condition. As armor degrades, it becomes much easier to penetrate. Battle Buddy will demonstrate this for you very easily, but basically by the time the armor gets to about half its original maximum condition, you should probably sell it off if you can't repair it better. If you're more than a couple weeks into the wipe, I would never buy anything worse than class 4 armor, and most often I would be looking to use at least class 5 or even class 6 armor. In the future, I'll make a more detailed guide on armor, but I'm just looking to give basic advice for now. Also, once you have the flea market, you should be using the best ammunition you can afford since you'll have access to everything on the flea market. And if you can't afford an ammo type that will be able to break through class 6 armor quickly, then you probably shouldn't be using that gun until you can afford that ammo type. I highly recommend you use headsets as they're very useful to help you hear someone coming before they hear you. It can take some time to get used to them, but I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten the drop on someone because I heard their footsteps before they heard mine. Finally, on the gear front, make sure you use a balaclava or some other face mask. Your forehead is super bright and easy to see, even through trees, bushes, and brick walls. A crappy, cheap balaclava will cover this floodlight up, making you far less likely to get sniped out of nowhere. You should always use insurance. You can die for all kinds of reasons and not get looted. Insurance is pretty cheap compared to how much it costs to lose the gear, so it's always useful to insure your gear. Hopefully this video helps you out. If it did, drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you need more assistance, join my community on Discord. There's lots of people there who are very knowledgeable and helpful, who love to team up. Or drop by my Twitch stream and feel free to ask me or my community questions live. If you guys want me to make a more extensive guide on a specific topic, drop me a comment below and I'll look into it. Until next time, guys.